Sarah, we thank you so much for participating today and our YouTube channel. And we really amplify the work of wonderful people like yourself to really get it out there, get the message out there for people to understand the type of work that we do and how passionate we are in the work. And it's something that we hold dearly. And we talk, but there's action to back it. So we thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Thank you. So my name is Sarah Stuewe. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Associate Director of Philanthropy and Investor Relations at WINDMILL MICROLENDING. And WINDMILL MICROLENDING is a registered charity, and we provide affordable loans of up to $15,000 to skilled newcomers and refugees so that they can pay for the credentials that they need to restart their careers in Canada. And alongside those loans, we also offer free wraparound supports, which include career coaching, mentorship, and financial literacy training. I've been at WINDMILL for almost 6 years. And when I first heard about WINDMILL, when I applied for the role, I really thought about how I had this sort of, in my incredibly privileged position, I had been able to move to the UK, move to Australia. And because I work in a profession that's not accredited, and I am a white woman who speaks English without an accent, I was able to literally waltz into positions in these countries. And my international experience was actually seen as a competitive advantage in some of these countries. And we know that that is not the experience that newcomers and refugees have when they arrive in Canada, and that there are lots and lots of barriers that they face. And WINDMILL is helping them to address one of those barriers that they have when they arrive in Canada, and they're trying to figure out how they can get back into the career that they did in their home country.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know that. That's awesome. And it's so comforting for them to know that they have a support like yourself and you and what you represent. That's amazing. So can you articulate your personal mission and vision for us and like what inspires you about the work you do?
So, what really inspires me about the work that I do in fundraising is I'm trying to unlock capital from these, from foundations, from high net worth individuals, from corporations, and flow that capital to specifically for WINDMILL to equity seeking groups like newcomers and refugees. So I feel like I'm able to use my position and education and privilege to, get access to, some rooms that who the folks that I'm trying to represent wouldn't necessarily have access to, and to really be a respectful voice and advocate for those folks. One of the things that I really love about WINDMILL's work is that we really focus on, our clients are our clients, and we want them to have an excellent customer service experience with WINDMILL. They are not our, beneficiaries. When we make a loan to a skilled newcomer or refugee, we do due diligence to make sure that, they have gotten into a program and they have a budget for how they're using those funds, but we send those funds directly to the newcomer's bank account. We are not, paternalistically saying, oh, we're going to send it right to the institution because we don't trust you to, make the payment to the institution. Like, there's a lot of trust that goes into that. Also, we provide, not only can our loans be used for educational purposes, but also the living expenses that go alongside going back to school, which I think is also really important. So while one of the really positive changes that we've seen is that, for example, Nurses have a lot more access to funding now through the government. That doesn't mean that their living expenses are covered while they're doing that training. So if they have childcare costs, or if they need to take time off from their survival job in order to do that training, we can also the loan can be used for that. So the funding is also very flexible for folks, which reflects my values as well.
That's awesome. Like I said, it's so comforting for them to know that you have that trust for them and they can feel like a human being, because who knows
Exactly.
where they're coming from and why they had to be, refugees here in Canada in the first place. So to have an organization like what you represent when you're so it's awesome. Getting goosebumps. Thank you. All right. So the flip side, what challenges or barriers have you come across and how have you overcome those?
Sure. The way that we sort of describe windmills, two barriers are knowing that folks know that windmill exists and is available to them. The Canadian government does not do a great job of supporting newcomers when they arrive in Canada. They might be sent to a website which has a laundry list of services that, you can't really make heads or tails of. There's 100 organizations there. You don't know which organization is suitable for you. So that really is one of our challenges, is making sure that skilled newcomers and refugees know that Windmill is available to them as a service. So we have done lots of things in the last several years, sort of improved our digital marketing and our outreach efforts, and we've managed to build our brand. But that sort of remains a challenge, is that folks may not know that, if you're arriving in Canada as an internationally trained dentist, you may not know that Windmill is available to you as a support. So that's something that we're continually working on. And then the flip side of that is making sure that we have the capital available to those folks to lend to them. We are making loans at about on average, $12,000 at a time. And our target this year is to make 3,000 new loans. So that's a whole lot of money that we need to raise in order to continue to serve folks at the rate that we are serving them. So we raise funds both through Philanthropy. So we're a registered charity, so we can accept gifts and provide tax receipts. And we also have an impact investment that funds our loan capital pool through our community bond. But that remains a challenge, is keeping up with demand and being financially sustainable.
Yes, all valid points you made, all valid points. That's one thing that is pretty repetitive in the interviews that I do, is just, making sure that you have the capital, so that you can continue the mission and the passion that you do. So yeah, totally understand. All right. So anything you're currently working on right now, your organization is working on?
So our goal currently in our current strategic plan is to get to serving 4,000 to approving 4,000 new loans per year by the end of our 26-27 fiscal year. So we're, really sort of building the sort of financial plan and also the outreach and marketing plan around how we're going to get there. And also, how will we get there without doubling the size of our organization in terms of staffing? So one of the things that we're focused on is transitioning to a digital organization so that we can strategically use AI and other technology tools to reduce those sort of low value contacts that our staff may have with clients, so that they can really focus on, the higher value interactions. So for example, one of the most common reasons that somebody would reach out to their loan manager was to ask the balance of their loan. And there has to be a technology, way that we can solve that. So we're looking at transitioning to a digital organization, reaching our goal of empowering those 4,000 newcomers and refugees per year by 26-27, and growing our funding at the same time in order to meet those goals.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So a general question, like, how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
I saw this question and I thought, this is a really, really interesting question. So for my personal view, I feel hopeful about the future of social impact, but I do think that there's a real need to grow the tent of folks I find, even like you'll look at, conferences, or you go to conferences around social finance, and it can feel like it's the same folks in the room. So you think, well, if it's the same people and we all agree, or we need to really bring in more people. And how do we bring in more people? And, is there room perhaps for incentives for foundations or high net worth individuals to flow more money to impact investments? Several years ago, Bill Young wrote a controversial op-ed suggesting that 100% of foundation endowments should be invested in impact. Like what can we do to either incentivize or regulate foundations and Canadians to flow more funds to groups that we know are getting such a small portion of charitable funds? Like, we know 0.5% of charitable funds are granted to Indigenous groups, that only 7 cents to 30 cents of every $100 donated to charity is going towards supporting Black charities. It's so voluntary at the moment. It's really just up to the goodwill of whoever is staffing or running that foundation to make those changes. And some foundations are certainly voluntarily doing that. But at what point have we exhausted everyone who's going to do it voluntarily? And, we're not providing incentives or regulations to folks who maybe need a little bit of a push in order to change how they allocate their capital. Like, I've had some conversations with foundations, and they just say, we do our granting, and our endowment is managed by our money manager, and we have zero interest in changing that.
Yeah, that is the harsh reality, So at this point, I don't mind shock therapy, because at this point, if they don't see the issues and the problems that is happening right now, and also in the future, in the near future, if this does not get regulated on a fair basis, like you said, small pennies are going into, Black organizations to help. And so it's just like, okay, so what is the final? Do you understand the final outcome? Do you understand the repercussions if we don't all come together as humanity at this point? You know what I mean? We're in silos, we're in bubbles, where I'm this organization, I'm that organization. Oh, I only give. Well, guess what? We're all human beings. We all have to go outside. We all have to deal with the reality. We're in a
The
fancy
weather.
restaurant and we're seeing homeless people on the street.
Yeah.
It's getting to that point. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I totally understand what you're saying. So let's
Yeah.
hope for the best.
And like, then there are changes, but it feels like they're not then well understood. Like, we know that the CRA has changed regulations around foundations granting to groups that don't have charitable status, but it feels like so misunderstood. Or,
Mm,
there's still such a high barrier because the CRA guidance isn't clear for folks. So foundations are kind of like, I've heard feedback from foundations that they're like, we think we're allowed to do this. We think we're on the right side. And it really depends
mhm,
on a foundation's own risk tolerance.
mhm.
Just because of that just because it does seem like there's still a lack of clarity. So the regulation has changed, but it doesn't seem like it's flowing. It's created a huge impact because it's not very well understood.
Exactly. Exactly. So what's your ultimate goal? What's does success look like to you?
So, I think as WINDMILL, our ultimate goal is to ensure that skilled newcomers are integrated equitably and contributing their expertise to Canada's economic and social success. About half of WINDMILL's clients are working towards careers in healthcare professions where we see, acute and chronic labor market shortages. So WINDMILL is really a win-win for Canada. It's, a loan that is repaid. It is building the credit of the newcomer while they are repaying it, so they can leave with a strong credit score. So our ultimate goal is to serve, as many skilled newcomers and refugees who are out there who could benefit from a WINDMILL loan that will help, and also to strive to connect with those folks sooner in their, journey into Canada. So even if when they arrive in Canada, perhaps it's not the first thing that you're going to do is enroll in a course. But if you know that Windmill is available to you when you're ready, that would be, I think, really beneficial for those folks. So making sure that Windmill is, that first port of call for folks who may need to do some recredentialing or extra training in order to get ahead in Canada.
Mhm. Wow, this is really awesome. So I really appreciate all of this. Can you may at the end just leave your information, the last question, any closing thoughts, calls to actions, or so
Yeah,
people can reach out and
for
especially if they're
sure.
in the area. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So um give us your closing thoughts and calls to action at this time.
Yeah, so I mean, I sort of would say I have two closing thoughts or calls to action. So if you are a capital allocator, consider how you can allocate your capital in more equitable ways. Windmill is one option. There's lots of other options out there for you. Lots of groups that are raising funds for really important work and different equity seeking groups. If you are an organization that is curious about Windmill's journey and Windmill's community bond, I'm always really happy to chat and connect and share about what I've learned. When I started at Windmill, I did not really know what impact investing was, and I've learned a lot over the last 6 years, so always really happy to share that. You can connect with me at sarah@teamwindmill.org. You could also find me on LinkedIn, Sarah Stuewe, Stuewe.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, we really appreciate this. It's very impactful. We appreciate your leadership, all that you do. We wish you continued success, and we'll definitely be collaborating very soon on
So
future
fun. It was really
projects.
nice to chat. Great question. I have great questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we'll definitely be in touch, and we will end the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So once again, thank you so much, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you.